Okay, so we're diving into Perfect Haremlit today,
Ah,
and wow, just wow, notes are intense.
yeah, it's way more than just, oh, let's write a fantasy romance. This gets into some serious stuff about relationships, how they work in fiction, which, can be trickier than real life sometimes, I think.
You're not kidding. Like right off the bat, the main character thing. It's not enough to just have a protagonist who's along for the ride, right?
Nope, no sir. This document, it hammers home that the MC has to be flawed. Dynamic, they have to make bad choices just like us, and then crucially, they've got to learn and grow because of it. Gives the reader someone to root for, someone to be almost, even when things get complicated relationship-wise.
And they do get complicated. That's kind of the whole point, I guess. But what struck me was how much emphasis there is on making the harem feel like real people.
Right, like none of that interchangeable love interest stuff. Each member needs to have their own everything. Backstory, personality quirks, even internal conflicts that might clash with the MCs. It's character-driven storytelling just happens to be, in a haremlit setting.
Speaking of, you use the phrase cardboard cutouts in your notes. I got to ask, for anyone new to this, what do you mean by that?
Oh, good point. Cardboard cutout, it's basically a character who's just there fulfilling a role, like the jealous one, the shy one, the super protective one, all trope, no depth, flat, predictable. Readers can smell him a mile away, and it's boring.
And this document makes it crystal clear, boring is not the goal. One thing that really jumped out at me was the emphasis on pacing. It's not just insta-love and then bam, harem formed, right?
Totally. Notes, stressed, balanced pacing. Gotta have those high-stakes adventure scenes, sure, but also the quiet slice-of-life moments that build real connection. And yeah, even that slow burn attraction stuff, done well. That's gold.
Hold on, slow burn.
Yeah.
Some folks might not be up on the lingo. What's that look like in our perfect harem-lit world?
Think of it like building anticipation. Instead of
Yeah.
boom instant fireworks, it's more like you're feeding a fire slowly. Stolen glances, a brush of fingertips, the tension just builds and builds. Makes the payoff, when it happens, so much better.
Makes sense to me. But look, the notes go beyond characters and pacing, right? There's this whole thing about good writing, like actually crafting solid prose, maybe mixing genres, even detailed world building. How does that fit into perfect haremlit?
It's all about immersion. You need vivid descriptions, language that pops, a setting that feels real. That way, even if the romance is fantastical, the reader's grounded. It's like, if the world feels believable, the relationships inside it become believable too.
Yeah, that tracks. Okay, got to ask about the elephant in the room, or maybe the more adult themes. How does perfect haremlit handle intimacy? Maybe even some kinkier stuff. Tastefully, I'm hoping.
Tastefulness is key, and you nailed it in your notes. Consent and respect. Always. It's not about being shocking for the sake of it. If those elements are there, they have to serve the story, reflect the characters honestly, and yeah, be handled with care. It's about pushing boundaries, not obliterating them.
Pushing boundaries, I like that. So we're talking about a story that's more than just a power fantasy, right? It's got to have heart, real characters, relationships that feel earned.
100%. What these notes show is that haremlit can be all that. It can be funny, sexy, sure, but also complex, emotional, even make you think about love and relationships in new ways. And that's exciting.
Totally agree. So after this deep dive, what's the biggest takeaway for you? What about this person's perfect haremlit notes really struck a chord?
Honestly, it's how universal these ideas are. Building good characters, a plot that grabs you, writing with purpose. That's any good story, right? This document just uses haremlit as a lens, a way to examine those elements, which is kind of brilliant when you think about it. It makes you realize this genre has way more potential than people give it credit for, and maybe those lessons apply to how we read and write everything. Lots to chew on.
Food for thought, for sure. And with that, we'll leave our listeners to ponder.